Well, when you hear the president talk about the number of people who die every day, and he really, I know that it gets to him like it should anybody. But on Wednesday, he struck a deal with India. They're going to stop buying oil and gas from Russia, and I think it's about 35% of the export of Russia. But it's not going to be overnight. But are sanctions enough pressure? Cutting off their oil and gas business. Is that enough to get Putin to the table?
Yeah, I think you have to separate sanctions from tariffs, because I think what we found is that tariffs have been quite effective as a negotiating tool with the Russians. But sanctions have been tried for decades in this particular region of the world.
And all over the world.
And all over the world. And I don't think they actually work particularly well. In fact, I think you can make an argument that in some cases, not all, of course, but in some cases, sanctions cause a lot of damage to the American economy and don't actually get the result that we want them to get, which is why the president has been very deliberate. He hasn't, he doesn't just apply blanket sanctions. He actually talks to the parties. He tries to understand what are the pressure points, what are they sensitive about. With the Russian case in particular, of course, a main driver of their economy is the oil that they sell to India and China. So he's been working with both India and China to try to cut down on those oil sales, and again, in order to apply some pressure to the parties in the region to get peace. But we're going to keep on doing that. The president's going to keep on aggressively working on it. There have been multiple times where people in the administration, from staff all the way up to cabinet secretaries, including me, by the way, have said, this thing is just never going to get finished. These guys are never going to make a deal. And the president says, we're going to keep on working at it. And
well, that's what everybody said about Israel. That's what everybody said about Israel.
That's what everybody said about Israel, and the president said we're going to keep on working at it. Yes, it's frustrating sometimes. Yes, he gets impatient with everybody involved sometimes. But eventually, so long as you keep working on it, I think the president has great confidence he can strike a deal. I think that he will. It's just a question of how long it's going to take. All
right, let me now bring it back to the United States. Domestic issues. I think probably the primary issue that every American cares about: health care, access to health care.
Yep.
Obamacare has not worked for a lot of people. Do you have, or does the administration have a plan? Because now the wars are, at least hopefully, getting behind us.
Sure. We do have a plan, actually, and one of the things that the Obamacare system did is that it really broke the insurance regulations in this country. I mean, so many people, if you go back to that early implementation period of Obamacare, even people who had really good health care, they saw their health care bills skyrocket by 100, 200, even 300%. You remember the famous promise, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. A lot of people found, because of the Obamacare regulations, they couldn't keep the doctor that they had built a relationship with over years. We want to fix that program, that process. And we also want to make sure that people can access affordable health care, because the great promise of Obamacare is that it would slow the increased costs of health care. It completely failed on that metric too. So we do have some things that we're working on. We've actually extended an olive branch to Democrats and said, if you guys want to come and have a conversation about how to fix this system, we'll certainly sit down and talk with you.
Is there a fix? Is there a fix?
I think there are things that you can do to make it better. I think the system, to pretend that we can fix such a complicated system, that logic is probably what led to the original Obamacare disaster. But I think that we can actually make the regulatory system of the insurance marketplaces work better. We can use reinsurance to make it more affordable for people with pre-existing conditions to get access to health care. And we can also make it easier for, look, if you're, let's say, a 30-year-old man who's completely healthy, you're going to want a different insurance product than a 65-year-old with some pre-existing conditions. I think that if we allow people to get the kind of health care plan that suits them, it'll actually lower costs. It'll get more people into the insurance system, which lowers costs for everybody, but it also make it so that people actually access good care. It is broken. The system was broken. We inherited a very broken system, and we do have some good ideas for how to address it.
Well, it's built into those a horrible inequity. Like, I just had back surgery, and I had spectacular back surgery. I was back at work in 5 days because I could afford it. I had insurance. But I run into people my whole life, saying, "Oh, my back hurts, my back hurts." I know they can't have what I have.
Sure. Well, that is a big problem in American healthcare, is that actually American healthcare, if you can afford at the high end, is really, really good healthcare. But unfortunately, a lot of people at the low end, a lot of people who are in the Medicaid program, they're really suffering because the healthcare isn't very good. And that's one of the things that we would like to fix and we would like to address. Unfortunately, as you know, any big healthcare policy, it requires Democrats in this town because, Democrats have a filibuster-proof margin in the Senate. Even if you had all 53 Republicans who would support a health care program, you would need 7 Democrats to get on board. So we're going to actually force the Democrats to work with us and to actually enact some policy. And this is
People think news just happens. It doesn't. It happens because there's someone there to capture the moment, to explain it and share it. That's my job. I go where news breaks and give you the facts. Join me for The Record on Newsmax.